Welcome to Poker for Dummies. I'm Chris Moneymaker from Nashville, Tennessee. And yes, that's my real last name. In 2003, I won the World Series of Poker with a grand prize of $2.5 million. This was my first live tournament, and prior to winning, I'd only been playing poker for 3 years. I'm living proof that dreams can come true, which could be in the cards for you as well. Poker for Dummies is geared primarily for 3 different types of players. The novice. You've never played poker before, and you don't know a full house from a straight. Not to worry, I've got you covered. The home player. Maybe you've been playing since you were a kid, but for some reason you always lose. You know the rules, but you don't know how to win. I can help you here as well. The new casino or card room player. If you're ready to take your game to the next level of play, Poker for Dummies can help you discover the winning way. Poker for Dummies consists of 7 easy-to-follow segments. Poker Basics. What you need to know to get started. Here you find out about hand rankings, poker and betting lingo, poker etiquette, and general stuff to make you feel more confident and ready to play. Texas Hold'em, the world's most popular poker game. Find out how to play just like the pros you see on TV. Essential Hold'em strategies. Now that you know how to play Hold'em, this segment teaches you round by round how to do the right thing. The art of the bluff. Surefire ways to outsmart and outplay your opponents. Tells. The conscious and subconscious telltale signs poker players use to deceive their opponents. More games. How to play other poker favorites. And finally, my top 10 World Series secrets for becoming a top-notch poker player. Check these out and you'll be on your way to being a moneymaker too. Later in this comprehensive program, I'm joined by a man the poker community refers to as Mr. Poker, Barry Schulman, owner and publisher of Card Player Magazine and cardplayer.com. As with all 4 Dummies programs, you'll see these helpful icons appear on the screen. The Jargon Alert gives you plain English explanations of perhaps unfamiliar poker terminology. The Remember icon points out general concepts you don't want to forget. The Caution icon is used to keep you out of trouble by alerting you to common mistakes, and the Tip icon highlights helpful hints. Okay, are you ready? Let's play some poker. Poker, just like a house, requires a good foundation. Only after the foundation is solidly in place can you proceed to build on it. And that's our purpose here, to give you a basic understanding of what you need to know before you begin to play. Keep in mind that although the focus of this program is Texas Hold'em, the most popular and well-known game of poker, these basics apply to all poker games. The objective of poker is to win money by capturing the pot, which contains the various bets made by players during a hand. You win a hand in one of 2 ways. 1. You show down the best hand at the conclusion of all betting rounds. When 2 or more players are still playing after all the betting rounds are done, the players turn their hands face up. The pot goes to the player who holds the highest hand during this showdown. 2. All your opponents fold. Folding a hand means that a player relinquishes his or her claim to the pot by not matching an opponent's bet. You literally fold your hand and place your cards face down on the table. In this case, you may have actually had the best hand, or you may have been bluffing. It doesn't matter. Whenever opponents surrender their claim to the pot is yours. Whether you use pennies or peanuts to bet with at home, nothing beats the feel of real poker chips. Chips are available in a wide range of colors and patterns. Each color represents a different monetary value. During the program, you'll see us using these yellow poker chips that represent $1. If you want to add a dose of Vegas-style play to your home game, try using real chips. Most popular poker games are played with a 52-card deck that consists of 4 suits: spades, hearts, diamonds, and clubs. The suits are equal in value, so diamonds aren't any better than clubs, and spades aren't worth more than hearts. There are 13 ranks in each suit. The ace is the highest ranking card in a suit, followed by the king, queen, jack, and 10, on down to the deuce. Even though Texas Hold'em is played with 7 cards, the best hand always refers to the best 5 cards in a poker hand. So out of the 7 cards, you get to pick 5 cards that make up your best hand. Hand rankings are a function of probability. The rarer the hand, the more valuable it is. Here's a listing of poker hands from the least valuable to the most. 1 pair. 1 pair is simply 2 cards of 1 rank and 3 unrelated cards. For example, the 3 of hearts and the 3 of diamonds, plus the 10 of hearts, king of spades, and ace of diamonds. If 2 players hold the same pair, then the value of the unrelated side cards determines the winning hand. For example, the queen of hearts, queen of clubs, 10 of diamonds, 3 of spades, and 9 of clubs is superior to the queen of spades, queen of diamonds, 9 of clubs, 8 of spades, and 2 of hearts. This is because the 10 is higher in ranking than the 9. This defining card in poker is referred to as the kicker. Two pair. Two pair is made up of 2 cards of one rank, along with 2 cards of another rank, and 1 unrelated card. If more than one player has 2 pair, then the higher rank determines which 2 pair is superior. For example, the Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Clubs, plus the 5 of Diamonds and the 5 of Clubs, along with the 7 of Spades, is superior to the 8 of Diamonds and the 8 of Hearts, with the 4 of Spades and the 4 of Hearts, plus the 3 of Hearts. If 2 players hold 2 pair and each player has the same high pair, then the rank of the second pair determines the winning hand. If the hand is identical, then the highest ranking kicker takes the pot. 3 of a kind. 3 of a kind is 3 cards of the same rank along with 2 unrelated cards. If you have the 7 of Clubs, 7 of Hearts, and 7 of Spades, plus the King of Diamonds and 4 of Clubs, you refer to the hand as trip 7s or a set of 7s. Straight. A straight is 5 sequence cards, not all of the same suit. If more than one straight is present, the highest card in the sequence determines the winning hand. For example, a Jack-Eye straight, Jack of Clubs, 10 of Diamonds, 9 of Hearts, 8 of Clubs, 7 of Spades would beat a 10 of Clubs, 9 of Hearts, 8 of Hearts, 7 of Spades, and 6 of Diamonds, or a 10 high straight. Flush. A flush is any 5 cards of the same suit. The cards are not in sequence. If there's more than one flush in a game, the winning hand is determined by the rank order of the highest card or cards in the flush. For example, a flush consisting of the Ace, Queen, 10, 8, 6 of Hearts would trump the King, Jack, 9, 5, 4 of Clubs. Full house. A full house is made up of 3 cards of one rank and a pair of another rank. The 3-card grouping, not the pair, determine the rank of the full house. For example, a hand with 3 9s and 2 5s is referred to as 9s full of 5s. I won the World Series of Poker with a full house. I can't forget that hand. It was 5s full of 4s. 4 of a kind. 4 of a kind, also known as quads, is a 5-card hand composed of all the cards of one rank plus 1 unrelated card. 4 jacks and a 5 is one example. The higher the rank, the better. For example, 4 kings beat 4 queens. 4 8s beats 4 7s. Straight flush. A straight flush is 5 cards of the same suit that are in sequence. An example is a 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 of Hearts, Spades, Diamonds, or Clubs. Royal flush. A royal flush is simply an ace-high straight flush and is the best possible hand in poker. There are only 4 royal flushes possible: Ace, King, Queen, Jack, 10 of Spades, Hearts, Diamonds, or Clubs. Betting. Without betting, poker would be just a game of luck and the best hand would always win. Betting is key to poker. In fact, minimizing losses when holding a poor hand while maximizing wins with good hands is what poker is all about. Every betting interval requires a check, bet, fold, call, or raise. More on these terms in a bit. Whoever makes the first bet is said to make the opening bet. After a bet has been made, other players may fold, call, or raise. When a player folds, he loses any chips he has contributed to that pot and has no further play in the hand. After the final round of betting, a showdown among the remaining players who are in the game determines who wins the hand. Here are some basic key terms to describe the action that takes place during a poker game.
I bet.
Bet. A wager of a certain amount of money by a player in a poker game.
Call.
Call. Refers to placing the amount of money bet by another player into the pot in order to keep playing the hand, often stated as, I call your bet.
Check.
Check. When you check, you're declining to bet when it's your turn to do so. Checking is often illustrated by tapping your fingers on the table.
Raise it.
Raise. To put an additional bet into the pot, forcing other players to put more money into the pot if they want to stay in the hand.
I fold.
Fold. To decide not to call a bet or not to raise. By folding, you relinquish your interest in the pot. You indicate folding by turning your cards into the dealer. Poker etiquette. Poker rules and etiquette help speed the game along and keep it orderly. These conventions are as much a part of the game as the cards themselves. In fact, when you play casino poker for the first time, poker etiquette may take more getting used to than the game itself. Keep in mind the following points of poker protocol. Act in turn. Each player is expected to act in turn as play proceeds clockwise around the table. In other words, if someone bets and you plan to discard your cards and not play, wait until it's your turn to do so. In poker, as in most things, it's considered polite to wait your turn. Keep your cards in plain sight. In order to maintain the integrity of the game, it's important for players to keep their cards on the table during the hand of play. The best way to protect your hand is to keep them on the table and look at the cards by shielding them with your hands while lifting a corner of each card to peek at it. In a game like Texas Hold'em, it's customary to leave your cards face down on the table after looking at them and to place a chip on top of them. This tells the dealer that your hand is still in play. Avoid discussing hands in play. Discussing your hand with other players, even if you've released it and are no longer contesting the pot, may provide information that would give another player an unfair advantage. If you want to discuss a hand with a neighbor, wait until the hand is over. Practice toking. When you play in a card room or a casino, toking or tipping the dealer when you win a pot is considered proper poker etiquette.
That's a tip.
The amount you toke is dependent upon the size of the pot and the betting structure. Take your token cue from other players at the table. Okay, now that you know poker basics, it's time to put them into action. Texas Hold'em is the most popular game played in casinos and card rooms. Although playing expertly requires a great deal of skill, Hold'em is easily learned and deceptively simple. Texas Hold'em is also the fastest growing poker game in the world and is the game used to determine the world champion at the World Series of Poker. Meet Barry Schulman, owner and publisher of Card Player Magazine and CardPlayer.com. Card Player is known as the Poker Authority and is a great resource for all things poker. Together, Barry, also a world champion, and I will teach you step by step how to play this exciting game. Barry, why don't you start us off?
Okay. In casinos and online, Hold'em is typically played with 9 or 10 players to a table, plus a dealer. Our table features 6 players, so the action will be easier to follow. I'd like to introduce the players. Adam Schoenfeld is a well-known tournament poker player and World Poker Tour finalist. Alan Jaffrey is the editor of CardPlayer.com. She's also a rising poker star, and she can be seen frequently playing at the biggest tournaments in the world. Jeff Schulman, we call him Happy, he's a co-publisher of Card Player Magazine. You may recognize him from television. He's one of the finest Texas Hold'em tournament players in the world. Shirley Rosario has been playing poker for almost 10 years. In the last 2 years, she's been playing professionally. She's a great example of more and more young women getting involved in the poker circuit. And of course, you know Chris. And this is our dealer, Aaron Long, who's not only a professional dealer, but also a Hall of Fame champion. In Hold'em, position, or where you sit at the table during a hand, is very important. Casino games are dealt by professional dealers. But whether you're playing at a casino or at home, a small disc called a dealer button is used as a marker to indicate the player in the dealer position. After each hand of Hold'em, the button is moved one position clockwise, so that all players in the game have, after a full round, had exactly the same number of opportunities to hold positional advantage. But we'll talk more about positional strategies later on.
Before any cards are dealt, the first 2 players to the left of the dealer position, in this case Shirley and Jeff, are required to post blind bets, which are used to stimulate action. In other words, these 2 players post their bets before they see any cards. That's why they're called blind bets. In a $2, $4 Hold'em game, the game that we're illustrating here, the blinds are $1 and $2 respectively. The big blind is equal to the initial bet. All players are then dealt 2 cards face down. The cards belong exclusively to their owners and are not seen by the other players at any time until the showdown at the end of the hand. A side note here, try to keep your face as free of expression as possible when looking at your private cards. Developing your poker face is an important part of learning to play poker. At this point, a round of betting takes place, which is called before the flop or pre-flop. In the pre-flop betting round, the player immediately to the left of the big blind, in this case Adam, has only 3 choices. Because blind bets have already been made by the players in the first and second positions, Shirley and Jeff, Adam can fold. If the first player folds, he is out of the hand permanently and cannot participate again until the next deal of the cards. or call by matching the size of the big blind by putting $2 in the pot, or raise. The raise is the amount of the big blind, in this case $2. In the game we're illustrating, the blinds are $1 and $2, so if Adam raises, he places $4 in the pot, matching the $2 blind and raising it $2. Okay, now assume the first player, Adam, does indeed raise to $4. Alan folds. Now the action comes to Barry, who calls $4. Now the action is round to the dealer button. That's me. I decide to call $4 as well. The player in the small blind, Shirley, must now decide whether she's going to call $3 more or raise to $6. Remember, Shirley already had $1 in the pot, being the small blind. If she calls the $3, the big blind, Jeff, must now decide whether he's going to call the $2, fold, or raise to $6. Remember, he already had $2 in the pot, so Jeff's going to call. For the purpose of this illustration, let's review what's taken place. Shirley, the small blind, bet her $1. Jeff, the big blind, bet his $2. These blind bets are mandatory. They had no choice. Adam raised, making the bet $4. Alan folded, Barry called $4, and I called $4 as well. Shirley, who already had $1 in the pot since she was the small blind, called Adam's raise. Jeff, the big blind, bet his $2.
With the pre-flop betting complete, the dealer pulls in the pot and then deals out 3 cards face up in the center of the table. These are the common or community cards that belong to all players. These 3 cards are called the flop. You hear that all the time on television. Here comes the flop. In the second betting round, the player who's closest to the left of the button and still in the hand, in this case Shirley, acts first. Unlike the first betting round though, where the options were call, raise, or fold, now Shirley has only 2 options. She can check, which means to decline the wager now, but retain the option to call or raise bets made by other players, or bet. In this case, because the game structure is 2 and 4, she can bet $2. Let's say Shirley decides to bet $2. Jeff folds. Adam calls by matching Shirley's $2. Alan is already folded. I call $2. Now Chris has to decide what to do, and he raises by matching the $2 that's already bet and raising $2 more, totaling $4. Now, if Shirley, Adam, and I want to stay in the hand, we can call or raise in turn. Shirley calls the raise, but Adam likes his hand and is going to re-raise, making the bet $6 total. So now I have to decide if I want to stay in the hand, which will cost me $4 more. Again, my choices are to call, or to raise, or to fold. I'm going to call the $4. Now Chris wants to stay in there as well, so he'll call and put in $2 more to match the bet of $6. Shirley decides to call and puts in $2 to match the correct total of $6.
After the second round of betting concludes, the dealer reveals a 4th community card called the Turn, or 4th Street. In this round, the size of betting amount now doubles to $4. The process of betting and checking is identical to that on the flop. So let's illustrate at this point. At this point, Shirley is still in the hand. Note her chip on top of her cards. Protects her hand from accidentally being folded or otherwise fouled. Always protect your cards too. Adam has a hand, Barry is still alive, and I am still in. Jeff and Alan have folded. So after the turn has been revealed by the dealer, another betting round begins. As always, the action starts to the left of the dealer button. I have the dealer button, so the first person to the left of me who's still active is Shirley. She acts first. Shirley checks. Note her tapping fingers. This is the same thing as if she had said check out loud. Adam, if he's going to bet, he must bet $4 instead of $2, which was the limit on the previous round. Adam bets. Now Barry has to decide what to do. He can call, matching the $4, or he can raise, adding another $4 to make it $8. Or he can fold. Just to keep things interesting, he'll raise, so he matches Adam's $4 and raises $4, making the bet 8. Now it's back to me. I have to decide if I still want to stay in. I do, so I call and match the $8. Next, the action moves over to Shirley. Now she can decide to fold, call the $8, or raise to $12. She decides to call as well. So now the action's back to Adam, who made the initial bet. Now he has the option to fold, call the additional $4, or re-raise to $12. Adam decides to call. After this third round of betting concludes, the dealer reveals the fifth and final community card called the River, or Fifth Street. Betting is identical to the pattern used on the third or turn round, meaning that the betting is still doubled. So Shirley, Adam, Barry, and I are still in the hand. Shirley, first to act, checks. Adam bets $4. Barry folds. Now it's back to me. I decide to keep it interesting and raise and make it $8. Shirley's the next to act, and she decides to fold. Adam now has the option to call my raise, fold, or re-raise. Adam decides to call the $8 raise and adds $4 to the pot. So now let's see what everyone has. Since I was the one to raise, I show my cards first. I show 2 pair, 5s and 4s with a queen kicker. Adam shows his hand, 3 queens with a jack 8. Nice hand, Adam. He's the winner of this pot.
Now that you know the rules of Texas Hold'em, here are some strategies to help you win. The first strategy you want to understand is that of position play, which means that the closer you are to the dealer button, the better, because you're last to act. That's because Hold'em mirrors life. And in life, those who have an opportunity to make decisions with the most facts tend to make better decisions. So the more you can make decisions about your play based on observing what others have played, the better. Now in this case, the person with the dealer button is Chris. So with Chris holding the dealer button, Jeff and Shirley, the next 2 players clockwise from Chris, are said to be in early position. This is the weakest position to be in because you're first to act and at a disadvantage since you haven't had the chance to observe the other player's actions. Ryan and Adam are considered middle position, while Alan and Chris are in late position, which is the best position since everyone has to act before they do, potentially revealing key information about their hands. The second strategy to review is the critical significance of your first 2 cards. You frequently hear players say that any 2 cards can win. While that's technically true, it doesn't tell the whole story, the real story. While any 2 cards can win, they often won't win enough to warrant even playing them. In all forms of poker, you need to have solid starting standards. Players who lack starting standards take the worst of it far too often. Here's what I mean by starting standards. High cards. Play them well, and you're on the road to winning. Remember, because 5 of the 7 cards are community cards, the 2 in your hand are critical and can make or break your playing advantage. Pairs are great, and the bigger the better. Pairs are good starting hands because your 2 cards are often the best hand before the flop. However, as more and more cards are dealt, pocket pairs lose their value if they don't improve. When you start with a pocket pair, you're hoping the flop is set, that is 3 of a kind. But that only happens in about 1 time out of every 8.5 times of play. Strength in cards is relative. Invariably, when you start with a low pair, higher cards will come on the flop, so you'd probably check with a low pair, and often fold if it's bet to you. Starting with the middle pair may be much more promising, depending on whether the flop is higher or lower than your pair. For example, a pair of 9s with a flop of 2, 5, 7 is a very good hand. With a flop of Queen, King, Ace, it's a terrible hand. High pairs are frequently still promising after the flop because a hand like Queen, Queen, King, King, or Ace, Ace often wins without any improvement whatsoever. Ace-king is a hand that influences your outcome more than any other. More money is won and lost by playing ace-king than any other hand. This is one of the very best starting hands possible after ace-ace, king-king, or queen-queen. One reason this is such a winning combination is because the flop often shows an ace or a king, giving you the very best pair with the very best kicker, that is the other card. However, don't fall in love with your ace-king. Remember, if you don't flop an ace or a king, you have no pair. When you've seen the flop, you've seen more than 70% of the final hand. You may be wise to fold your ace-king here if there is a bet to you. Remember, even if you improve on the turn, or even on the river, your one pair might be up against two pair in another player's hand. Of course, if 4 of the 5 cards, your 2 plus 3 on the flop, include 4 to a flush or 4 to a straight, then you might want to keep playing. Multi-way versus heads up. In poker speak, multi-way means when more than 2 people are going for the pot. And heads up means that the players are one-on-one. When several people start a hand, starting becomes more appropriate with hands like 10-jack suited or even 7-8 suited, called suited connectors, meaning that you're both of the same suit and they're sequential. Even if your hand is not the best going in, it's the type of hand that can make a big hand like a straight or a flush, which just may be necessary to win some pots when many players are in the hand. Playing the blinds. When you're one of the 2 players with the blinds, at our table with Adam holding the dealer button, Alan is a small blind and Chris is a big blind. When you're in a blind position, you can play speculative hands, especially in unraised pots, but don't overdo it. Remember that the person immediately to the left of the dealer has to put in a blind bet of usually half the normal bet. And the person to that person's left, the second position, places an entire blind bet. Blind play is tricky but often profitable. Because you already have money in the pot, you can often call for very cheap. In an unraised pot, the player with the small blind can call cheaply and the big blind doesn't need to put in any more money in order to see the flop. Playing the flop. The strategy here is to fit or fold. Since 3 cards are flopped all at once, a hand is more than 70% complete on the flop. What you want to remember is that the cards need to fit or you need to fold. By that I mean that you want the flop to somehow fit with your hand or you want to get out. That is fold. For example, you have 2 spades in your hand and 2 or 3 spades flop, that fits. If you start with king-queen and a king or a queen flops, that fits. However, if you start with a pair of 9s and the flop comes queen, king, ace, there's only a very small chance that you have the best hand. Probably you should fold here. Playing the turn. Once the turn card has been exposed, you want to have the best hand at this point. Things start getting expensive on the turn because the bets double in value during the last 2 betting rounds. Now you want to stay in only if you have the best hand or if you think you have a reasonable chance of making the best hand. Playing the river. Bet with the best hand or check. No more cards are coming. You either have the best now or you don't. If you have the best or probably have the best, then bet or raise when it's your turn. If the pot is big and you have some chance of holding the best, then check or call if it's bet to you. You know, when all is said and done, one of the most essential strategies you want to develop is patience. Sometimes it all boils down to a simple choice. You can have a lot of fun, you can gamble it up, and you pay the price for your pleasure. Or you can apply the patience required to win consistently. You decide.
I'm out.
I'll fold my 4. You have to have me.
I've got absolutely nothing, 6 high.
Ugh.
Wow, total bluff. Ask most poker players to define bluffing, and they'll tell you about betting a weak hand with hopes of driving other players out of the pot. After all, without bluffing, poker would be a boring game. Bets would be made, and the best hand would win, always. Deception is the art of keeping others off balance, and deception is a required skill for any poker player. Be aware of the number of players you'll have to bluff your way through. 1 or even 2 players can be bluffed, but don't even think about trying to bluff more than 2 opponents unless you have strong reasons to believe that you'll succeed. Understand that a bluff doesn't have to work to make it the correct decision. After all, you're just risking 1 bet to win an entire pot full of bets. Bluffing has to work only some of the time to be the right choice. Avoid bluffing players who are either experts or brain dead. Instead, aim your bluffs at good opponents. Poor players will usually call to keep you honest, while experts are more likely to see through your deception. Don't bluff just for the sake of bluffing. Only bluff if you have a reasonable chance to succeed. Never bluff a hopeless hand when there are more cards to come. Instead, think about semi-bluffing if your hand has some possibilities that would allow you to win the pot in one of two ways. Your opponents may fold, or you may hit your draw. Take the opportunity to bluff if all your opponents check on the previous betting round. It's even better if they've checked on an expensive betting round, but the chances are diminished if any newly exposed cards appear to have helped one of your opponents. Employ specific hands. Bluffs that seem to represent specific hands, such as a flush or a straight, have a much better chance to succeed than bets that appear to come out of the blue. Zero in on weak players. It's much easier to bluff players who have shown weakness by checking than to bluff those who have shown strength by betting on a preceding round. Strive for a controlled, aggressive image. This kind of image has a much better chance of running a successful bluff than a player with a loose image. Occasionally attempt a bluff when all the cards are out and you have nothing, but don't overdo it. Remember, bluffing or predicting the possibility that one's adversary might be bluffing often goes a long way into separating the winners from the losers.
In this segment, you find out about one extremely powerful aspect of poker called tells. Tells are telltale signs from which you can determine, for example, whether your opponent is bluffing just by watching your opponent's body language and listening for verbal cues. I've split tells into two categories: intentional tells and subconscious tells. Number one, strong means weak. When it's your turn to act, an opponent who is conspicuously staring in your direction is likely acting. Such staring is an implied dare, an attempt to prevent your bet through intimidation. Number two, weak hands. Generally, when a player shrugs their sighs and says, "I bet," in an exasperated tone of voice, you need a big hand to call. This player is going out of his way to convey sadness over his holding his weak hand, so beware. Number three, disinterested means strong. Conspicuously looking away from the action is usually an act. A player looking away from you tends to be a more dangerous player than one who's looking at you. When you see a player gazing away from the action as if distracted, beware. Number four, betting chips away from you means weak. When a player directs his bet not at you, but at another player, it usually means that the player is trying to convince you that he isn't really worried about your hand, but about something he sees elsewhere that's even more powerful. Then there's the subconscious tells. Number five, strong hand. Watch for a shaking hand. Few players intentionally put forth the effort to act nervous, and genuine shaking is hard to fake. Number six, weak hand. Watch the tail end of a bet. If the betting motion is smooth but finishes with a slight extra flair, perhaps a flick of the fingers releasing the chips, that extra emphasis often indicates weakness. The opponent is either bluffing or uncomfortable about the strength of his hand. Number seven, jittering and fidgeting. Jittering and fidgeting usually aren't an act. Players are impatient sometimes. Number eight, breathing rate. This unconscious tell is one of the strongest in poker. The key here is that players who make strong hands tend to become excited and to breathe faster. People who are bluffing, on the other hand, tend to disguise their breathing and sometimes stop entirely. They fear that anything they do may trigger their opponent's calling reflex. Number nine, glancing at chips. When a card is flopped or turned in Hold'em, it's a good time to look at your opponent, not the community cards. See if the opponent quickly glances towards his chips after seeing the card. This tell usually means the opponent likes what he sees and is planning to bet. Reaching for chips. Reaching for chips in anticipation of another person's bet may show strength or weakness. If it's intentional, then it's designed to try to stop the opponent from betting. Remember, Strong means weak. However, weak or new players who hold strong hands may sometimes reach for their chips before it's their turn to act. More experienced players generally do not do this. One additional tip about learning to spot tells is don't get frustrated. Most tells aren't 100% accurate. You need to use tells to add weight to your final decisions. Tells are just another factor to consider along with the strategic action that led up to the current decision.
Poker has changed my life. Winning the World Series was an amazing moment I will never forget. Now I want to share with you my top 10 secrets to becoming the best player you can be. Play selectively and aggressively. Winners play fewer hands than others do. However, when they play stronger. Come in on fewer hands, but raise often instead of just being a caller. Stay friendly and positive. People actually don't mind losing to friendly players. Besides, terrible players stay in the game longer if it's more fun. Positive players have a winning air about them that isn't superstition. It's more like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Specifically, don't criticize other players. Congratulate players when they win nice pots or make good plays. Always play your best game. In poker, people who get upset and start playing crazy are said to be on tilt. In the short run, poker involves a significant amount of chance. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you get unlucky. If you get unlucky, don't let that negatively affect your play. Bluff judiciously. Bluffing seldom works against beginners and in low-risk games where bluffing doesn't cost much. Generally, almost any poker game can be won with good, solid fundamental play. If you're going to bluff, do so against only one or two opponents, when your hand has no chance of winning in a showdown and when it's unlikely that the other players have made good hands. Observe. Learning to play poker is fun, but it also involves work. Done right, the work can be fun. Since you play fewer hands than most, you have more time for observation. While others are getting bored and wanting to play more, you're busy looking at the other players. You learn by observing how and what the others do. Don't bet more than you can afford to lose. No one wants to lose, but it's inevitable in poker. Just try to limit your losses to a reasonable amount, and never bet the rent or grocery money. Develop a signature style. Some players like hats. I prefer sunglasses. Eyes can often tip off what you're thinking, so anything that can keep them guessing is a good thing. Stick to starting standards. Knowing in advance which cards you're going to play, what position you'll play them from, and how you'll handle different opponents are key factors to success at a poker table. Practice makes perfect. There are many websites that give you the opportunity to play Texas Hold'em for free. This is a great way to test strategies and starting standards and to progress your development as a poker player. Most importantly, have fun. Never lose sight of the fact that poker is just a game and only a select few can and should make it a livelihood. Enjoy and keep refining your game hand after hand, year after year. You may think you'll never get the hang of poker, but now that you have the tools, get out there and be a winner.
In this segment, I'll be teaching you games that are commonly played in casinos and even in your own home other than Hold'em. The first game I'd like to teach you is Omaha High. Now for purposes of illustration, I've already dealt out 4 cards to each player face up. After the 4 cards are dealt out, the action begins clockwise after the big blind, just like in Hold'em. This person would be first to act, and for our purposes, we're going to have them call. Then the button would have to act. We'll have them call. The action comes to the small blind. They put in half a bet, and of course the big blind has the option to raise, but for our purposes, we'll just say he checks. Now, the dealer proceeds to pull the pot in and put 3 community cards out. Each player uses these cards to make their hand, but keep in mind that unlike Hold'em, in Omaha High, you must use 2 cards in your hand to make a complete hand. So after the flop is put out, there's a round of action, either betting or checking. In this case, everybody decides to check. Puts out a 4th community card, also known as the turn card, as in Hold'em. Again, there's a round of betting and or checking. The dealer checks again and puts the 5th card out, also known as the river card. After the 5th card is put out, or the river card, there's one last round of betting. Once the betting is complete, there's a showdown. For our purposes, we'll say that everybody's checked and everybody's turned their hands face up for the showdown. Let's take a look and see what each person has. First, we have in the small blind a queen and a 9 making a queen high straight. The person in the big blind has a king and a 4 of hearts. With the 3 hearts on board, makes a king high flush. Now we look at the person on the button. They have 2 4s in their hand. With the 3 8s on board, they make a full house, 8s full of 4s. Now we come to the last person in the hand. They have 2 queens and 2 aces. We take the 2 aces out, match them with the 3 8s on board, making 8s full of aces, the winning hand. And that's how you play Omaha High. In this segment, we'll be discussing 7-card stud, a very popular game both in casinos and even at home. In 7-card stud, each player must ante an initial bet. It's usually a small bet. For example, if you're playing 2 and 4 7-card stud, the initial ante would be 1 chip. Each player antes the chip so that they can receive the first 3 cards. Once the ante's put in, the dealer pulls in the pot and then proceeds to deal out the first 3 cards for each player. 2 face down and 1 face up. The face up card is known as the door card. It also initiates the betting. Example, the lowest card showing is the forced bet. In this particular instance, the 10 of clubs is the lowest card showing. So they would have to bring it in for the minimum bet. In this case, 2 chips. This person brings it in. The action comes to here now. Followed by this person, and clockwise in order. Once the betting on this particular street or this particular card is completed, the dealer pulls the pot in and proceeds to deal a 4th card to each player. Once the 4th card is put out, the action is initiated by the highest ranking hand showing. In this instance, it would be the 2 kings. Something to keep in mind in 7-card stud, the 4th card showing is still a minimum bet. However, if a person has a pair showing, they are allowed to bet the maximum bet. In this case, it would be $4. However, for our purposes of illustration, the kings are going to check, followed by a check, and a check. That round is complete. The dealer then proceeds to put out a 5th card. The 2 kings is still the highest hand showing, so they would initiate the action for this betting round. They would check, for our purposes. The 2 10s now showing would also check. This hand would check. This person would check. The dealer then would proceed to put out a 6th card to each player. Now, the initiation of the action has changed because this person has received 3 10s. That's the highest ranking hand showing. Again, for our purposes, this person would check. The person behind would also check. This person would check. The 2 kings would check. Finally, the last card, the river. You get it face down. Once each player has received their final card face down, a round of betting. Once the round of betting is complete, each person turns their hands up for a showdown. Let's take a look and see who has what. The first hand we see are 2 kings and 2 9s, 2 pair. This person has 3 10s showing. Let's see if they have anything else. No, just the 3 10s, but that does beat the 2 pair. Now we come to this hand. This person has a pair of 4s. Then we come to the final hand here. A pair of jacks. The winner in this case would be the 3 10s. And that's how you play 7-card stud. And now I'll be teaching you another poker classic, 5-card draw. In 5-card draw, it's played a little bit like Hold'em in so much as that you have a button, a small blind, and a big blind, and then the action proceeds clockwise after the big blind. Each person is dealt 5 cards initially face down. For purposes of illustration, I've dealt them face up so that we can see what's going on. After each person has received their first 5 cards, they have to call the initial blind bet if they wish to stay in the hand to draw to a better hand. So the first person to act here would be this person. We would take 2 chips to have them call. We would come to this person here. They would take 2 chips and call. We come to the small blind who already has a half a bet in, take 1 chip and have them call. And then, of course, we're going to have a friendly person in the big blind who decides to check their option and not raise. So once that's done, the dealer pulls the pot in and then asks each player how many cards they would like. Now, in this particular instance, we have a person that has the king, the queen, the jack, and the 10 of diamonds. So they would be looking for either a diamond, an ace, or a 9 to make either a straight or a flush. So they would get rid of this 3. Then the dealer would proceed to deal out each person's drawing cards. In this particular instance, this person would care for 1 card. They would catch a 9 of diamonds, making a straight flush. Very strong hand in this game. The next person to act has 2 aces in their hand, along with 3 unrelated cards. More than likely, they would want to discard the 3 unrelated cards and receive 3 new ones. This person caught a 3rd ace and then a king and a queen. The king and the queen are unrelated. However, 3 of a kind is a pretty strong hand. Now we proceed over to this person. This person has 2 8s in their hand, along with 3 unrelated cards. So we would take away these 3 unrelated cards to try and make the pair better. Again, the dealer has already burned, so you would only put out the 3 drawing cards. 1, 2, 3. This person caught a pair of 4s to go with their pair of 8s. 2 pair. Not a bad hand. Finally, the person on the button has the last draw. This person has a pair of 6s with 3 unrelated cards. So in order to make the hand better, they would probably lose these 3 cards and proceed to get 3 new ones. 1, 2, 3. 4 6s. A very strong hand. However, in this instance, the straight flush would be the winner. And that's how you play 5-card draw.
Wherever the game, whatever the stakes, discover how to bet, bluff, and play your way to a winning hand. From 7-card stud and high-low splits to Omaha and Texas Hold'em, the Poker for Dummies book is the perfect companion to this video. Available wherever books are sold.
Have you always wanted to learn how to play some of today's favorite poker games? Now you can, the easy way. From the makers of America's #1 instructional books comes the Poker for Dummies card game series by Fundex Games. Learn how to play 7-card stud, Texas Hold'em, and Omaha 8. Each game in the series comes with a step-by-step instructional booklet, and best of all, helpful tips are right on the cards themselves. It couldn't be easier. And be sure to check out these other card games for dummies so you can join in on all the fun at the next party. The For Dummies line of card games by Fundex are available at select retailers, or visit www.fundexgames.com for more information.